I had known my wife for 12 years, married for 10. If someone had told me even 6 months ago that she'd be the one to blow up my life so spectacularly, I'd have probably laughed or shrugged it off. She was my partner, my person. We'd fought for our marriage through infertility scares, debt, career changes, hell. We even adopted a dog together after realizing we might never have kids. That's how strong I thought we were. Turns out that wasn't even close to the truth. It started with the little things, I guess it always does. Her phone was suddenly always on silent. She was weirdly protective of it, even taking it into the bathroom, which she never used to do. I once asked if everything was okay, and she said she was just trying to reduce screen time and wanted to be more present. I told myself that was a good thing, healthy even. I let it go. Then she began working late, a lot. I'd offer to bring her dinner and she'd shoot it down, saying she was swamped or in back-to-back meetings. Once or twice, I'd have believed it, but it became routine. Her hugs were shorter, her laughter less warm. She still kissed me goodbye, but it felt like habit, not love. And the worst part? I still tried. I cooked her favorite meals, took her out on impromptu date nights, left her little notes around the house like we used to do in our first year. Nothing seemed to touch her anymore. It was like she had emotionally checked out, but didn't have the courage to tell me why. I should have trusted my gut, but no, I pushed it down and chalked it up to stress. Then, one night while she was asleep, her phone lit up with a notification. I wasn't trying to snoop. I genuinely wasn't. But my eyes landed on a message preview that said something along the lines of, "Miss you already, can't believe we pulled it off. Let's talk about next week's appointment." I knew that name. It was my stepbrother. Now, let me explain. We weren't close. My dad remarried when I was already in college. His new wife came with a son, a couple of years younger than me, Ryan. He was the smug type, always had that arrogant charm that somehow worked on women. We tolerated each other at family holidays, but I never considered him family. My wife had met him plenty of times at gatherings. I never imagined anything beyond polite conversation between them. So I sat there, staring at that text. My stomach dropped. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, that it wasn't what it looked like, but part of me already knew. I waited for her to wake up. My heart was pounding the entire time. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say. I had stayed up all night. But the second she opened her eyes in the morning, I told her that I needed her to be honest, that I saw Ryan's message and I needed to hear the truth right now. She went pale, and then she sat up and blinked at me and asked me what exactly I thought I saw. I told her again, and she just went quiet. Then she started crying, not a tear or two, full on sobbing. She said it wasn't supposed to happen, that it started as a mistake and that she was confused and it got out of control. And then the words I will never forget came out of her mouth. She said she was pregnant. I asked her to repeat herself. She said it again, quieter this time, like if she said it softer, it would hurt less, but it didn't, not even close. I asked her if it was Ryan's, and she nodded. I laughed. I don't know why, probably because it felt like a terrible punchline to a joke I didn't know I was the subject of. She said she was hoping I'd never find out, that they weren't planning on staying together, that she loved me, that this was just something that spiraled out of control during a rough patch in our marriage. She said she didn't want to lose me and that we could raise the baby together. She tried to take my hand. I pulled away. I told her I wasn't going to stay, that I didn't care how it happened or what regret she suddenly remembered now that the truth was out. I told her I was done, that this wasn't something you patch up with therapy and a few romantic getaways. She lost it. The crying turned to screaming. She yelled that I was giving up on her, that I was being cruel, and that I never really loved her if I could walk away like this. I told her to stop. I was too exhausted to fight. I packed a bag and left the house that night. The silence that followed was both brutal and welcome. I stayed at a friend's place for a few days, took a couple of days off from work, turned off my phone for a while. When I turned it back on, I had missed calls from her mom and my father. She told them that I left her while she was struggling with a complicated pregnancy and was emotionally unstable. She made it sound like I was abandoning her during a medical crisis. I didn't respond to her or her mother. I informed my father about what had happened and kept quiet. But things took a very dark turn only a week later when I got a call from Ryan. He had the audacity to laugh, told me that I took it too personally, that these things happen and that we could still all move on from this like adults. I hung up on him. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Because 2 days later I found out from a mutual friend that my wife had filed a legal complaint against Ryan for something else entirely. She claimed that what happened between them wasn't consensual, that Ryan had manipulated her, pressured her, and that it was essentially sexual harassment. I was stunned. I didn't know what to believe, and I'll be honest, my first reaction wasn't even concern for Ryan. It was disbelief. She'd gone nuclear. Update 1. A week after the accusation hit, my entire world turned sideways again. When I first found out she was pregnant with my stepbrother's child, I thought that was the worst it could get. I thought that packing a bag and walking away from our house, the one we had painted together, the one we decorated room by room, was the peak of heartbreak. And turns out I hadn't even reached the base of the wreckage, because now I was being dragged into a legal nightmare I never asked to be part of. My dad called me first. His voice was low, careful. He asked if I had heard what my wife had done. I said I had. Then he asked if it was true. I didn't even know what to say to that. I told him that I wasn't there, that I had no idea what really went down between them, and I wasn't about to start making declarations about something so serious without evidence. He sighed and said Ryan was a mess, that he was begging for someone, anyone, to vouch for him. And that's when it started. Ryan started texting me. Not just once or twice, it was constant. Paragraphs, voice notes. He begged me to talk to him. He said he didn't touch her without consent. He said it was mutual, repeated, that they were in love, that she only flipped because she was scared I'd leave and she'd lose everything. He said she was trying to save face, that she was manipulating the legal system, that if this went to court, his life would be ruined and I had to help him. Help him? That word made my skin crawl. I didn't even know where to begin with that. The man slept with my wife for who knows how long. He got her pregnant. He laughed in my face and had the nerve to say I was taking it personally. And now, after everything, he wanted me to show up in court and speak for him? Just because he was scared? I didn't reply. I couldn't. Every time I even looked at my phone, I felt this weight pressing down on my chest. A couple of days later, my wife, or I guess ex-wife, since I had already filed the divorce papers, called me from a different number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway. She said that she was sorry for how everything had happened, that she was in a bad headspace, that Ryan had taken advantage of her vulnerability. She said she never meant to hurt me and hoped that I would understand her side of things someday. Then she cried into the phone for a full minute before hanging up. I didn't call back. I didn't trust either of them. I didn't know who was telling the truth anymore. And I was angry, furious actually, at both of them, at myself, at the entire situation. That night I sat alone in my friend's spare room and tried to piece everything together. I thought about all the little moments over the years, family dinners where they sat too close, The way she used to get defensive whenever I made fun of Ryan. I had thought I was being paranoid, but maybe I wasn't. I started reading back old texts between her and me, our conversations from years ago when we were still in love, the slow erosion of intimacy, the subtle signs of detachment. It was all there. I just didn't want to see it. A few days after that, I got an email from Ryan's lawyer. They wanted me to provide a character statement about my wife. Something informal, just a signed letter that outlined anything I had noticed about her behavior, emotional instability, dishonesty, manipulative tendencies. They were trying to build a pattern to suggest she wasn't credible, that this was all a ploy. I stared at that email for what felt like hours. Technically, yes. I had things I could say. I could mention how she lied to me for God knows how long. I could say she kept up the charade of a marriage while sneaking around with my stepbrother. I could talk about the sudden change in her behavior over the past year. But I also knew this wasn't just about cheating anymore. This wasn't about infidelity or betrayal. This was about consent. And I wasn't about to get tangled up in trying to discredit someone in a legal case where that line had been drawn. I wrote back a simple line that I would not be getting involved. Ryan didn't take that well. He called me over and over, left voice messages saying I was just letting him take the fall, that I knew she was lying, that I had every reason to hate her and no reason to protect her. He said we were brothers, family, and I should be helping him. That was the last straw. I called him back. I told him he was not my family, that he never had been, that whatever line he thought he could cross by sleeping with my wife had burned any bridge that might have ever existed between us. I said he deserved everything that was coming to him, that I didn't care if she lied or if she told the truth, because he'd already done something so vile to me that I didn't owe him a single damn thing. And then I hung up. It was the only time I heard silence on the other end. After that, I blocked his number. It's been weird for weeks. Words getting around in the family. Some of them are calling me saying I should try to stay neutral. Others are saying I need to back Ryan up because he's blood. One of my aunts actually said boys make mistakes and I should try to forgive him. I told her that boys making mistakes didn't include sleeping with their stepbrother's wife for years behind his back. Not everyone liked that answer, and I emphasized that he was my stepbrother, not my blood. And even if he were my biological brother, I still wouldn't owe him anything. I've kept mostly to myself now. My divorce is moving ahead. She hasn't contested it, which honestly surprised me. Maybe she's too busy trying to keep her story straight, or maybe she realizes there's nothing left to fight for. And me? I'm just trying to breathe again. Update 2. It was almost surreal how quickly the silence turned into noise again. For a while, I had peace. Not the kind of peace that fills you up or makes things easier, but the kind where no one was bothering me. No calls, no texts. Just this stillness, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see which direction things would tip. And then it tipped. One of my cousins reached out on my mother's side. He said he'd heard about what was going on from my dad and he wanted to check in. I said I appreciated it, but there wasn't much to talk about. He didn't push, just said that people were starting to pick sides, most of them. They weren't picking mine. That didn't really surprise me, if I'm honest. See, Ryan had always been the more charming one, the one with the stories and the laughs and the loud entrances. I was the quieter one, the guy in the background, the one who cleaned up after parties and helped with groceries and made sure things got done. That stuff doesn't really win loyalty when it comes to family politics. Apparently, Ryan's been saying that she flipped out when I threatened to take the baby away. That she was scared. I'd make a scene and ruin her life. That's why she accused him. That's the story he's sticking to. And people are buying it. Not everyone, but enough. I started hearing little whispers. My aunt told someone that maybe I was making things worse by not clearing things up. That it was cruel of me to stay silent when Ryan's entire life was on the line. She said that as a man, I should understand how damaging false allegations could be. That phrase, as a man, has never sounded so stupid. I wasn't defending her, I wasn't taking her side, I was staying the hell out of it, because I had no idea what happened behind closed doors. All I knew was that both of them lied to me, that both of them chose to burn a decade of my life to the ground. And now that the fire was out of control, they both wanted me to show up with a bucket of water. No thanks. One of the lowest moments came when my father called me again. He said he didn't want to pressure me, but that Ryan was still my brother, that family doesn't abandon each other in moments like this, that he knew I was hurting, but hurting people hurt others too, and I needed to be careful not to let my anger turn me into someone I wasn't. That's when I lost it. I asked him if he was serious. I asked if he remembered what Ryan did. If he remembered that this wasn't some petty fight, that the man slept with my wife for years, that they got caught because of a pregnancy, that they laughed in my face, that they broke me and now he wanted to make me feel guilty. He tried to calm me down, but I was already pacing by that point. I said I was done being the one who always forgave, the one who smoothed things over. I said Ryan didn't just cross a line, he bulldozed through every boundary I had. I told my father that if he wanted to call someone his son, he could stick with Ryan because I wasn't going to keep pretending we were one big happy family. He didn't say much after that, he just hung up. And maybe that should have felt satisfying, but all it did was make me feel more alone. A couple of days later, I found out that my ex had moved in with her sister. She hadn't returned to the house we shared, which made sense. I had filed a notice through my lawyer that I intended to vacate the lease and remove all my belongings. She hadn't fought it. She did, however, post some cryptic nonsense on social media. Something about how some men pretend to be good guys until you see their true colors. How betrayal comes in many forms. How women are always punished for men's insecurities. I wasn't tagged, obviously, but it was clear who she was talking about. Her friends lapped it up, told her she was strong and they believed in her, that she didn't owe anyone explanations. I didn't engage. I didn't even feel anger. Just this weird, dull ache in my chest. Like I was watching someone I used to love rot from the inside out. It didn't make me feel better to see her unraveling. If anything, it made everything feel heavier. Ryan, on the other hand, wasn't giving up. He emailed me again. This time he said he was scared that he might lose his job, that the charges could mess up everything, his license, his travel, even his basic freedoms. He said that no matter what happened between us, I knew him, that I had to admit this wasn't like him. That sentence, "this isn't like me," made me physically recoil because it was like him. This was exactly like him. Ryan had always acted like consequences were things that happened to other people. He'd skirted trouble growing up, always charmed his way out of it, always had someone else clean up the mess. It was usually me when I visited for the holidays, but not this time. I told him exactly that in one line. That this was the first time in his life where no one was coming to fix it for him, and he better get used to it. After that, I blocked every email account he tried to contact me on, because there were a few. He even made a new Facebook profile just to message me again. I reported it. I wasn't playing anymore. I started therapy soon after. I needed someone to help me dig through the wreckage of my life. I couldn't sleep properly. I couldn't eat much. And I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How didn't I see it? How did I live with someone who could lie so easily? How did I not sense something was wrong? My therapist said something simple but sharp, that people like them get away with it because they're good at performing love. Because they know exactly how to keep people like me in their orbit, quiet, loyal, forgiving, until they need someone to blame. I guess I was tired of being the one to blame. So I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to convince my family. I stopped trying to make sense of what didn't make sense. And for once, I let myself be angry without apologizing for it. Update 3. It had been a little over 2 weeks since I last spoke to anyone in my family. Not out of spite, but because I couldn't stomach another half-hearted plea for peace or some lecture about how I needed to be the bigger person. I was done being big for people who made me feel small. Then my stepmother called. I didn't pick up the first 3 times, but 4th time, I figured I should at least hear what she had to say. She opened with the usual worried tone, said she'd been thinking of me, praying for me. Then, almost immediately, I pivoted to asking if I had talked to Ryan. Of course, because that was the real reason. I told her no, I hadn't, and that I didn't plan to. She said she understood, but that Ryan was devastated and didn't know what to do. That he felt betrayed by everyone, especially me. That I could still fix things before it got worse. That line just about made me laugh. Fix things? I asked her flat out, was she seriously expecting me to help him? She said no, not to help him, just give some context. Maybe clarify to the court that things between me and my wife had been rough for a while, that there were signs she wasn't stable. Maybe she was angry at Ryan and trying to take it out on him. And right there I realized how deep the rot went. She had already decided which side she was on. I asked her if she actually believed Ryan was innocent. She hesitated for half a beat too long, then said that she didn't know what happened, but she knew her son, that she raised him right, that he wouldn't do something like that. And that was it. I told her that if she wanted to keep pretending Ryan was some misunderstood victim, she could do it without dragging me into her fantasy, because I knew who Ryan was. I had seen every red flag, every manipulation, every smug smile when he got away with something. And I ignored it all because he was my stepbrother, and I didn't want to believe he could be that cruel. But he was. He didn't just sleep with my wife, he did it for years. He lied to my face, smiled across dinner tables, and played me along with my wife. And now, when it backfired, suddenly he wanted to play the victim. I hung up, and after that, the messages came in waves. Not just from my stepmother, but from extended family. A cousin, an uncle, even my dad, whom I hadn't spoken to in months. They all said the same thing in different ways. Maybe I didn't owe Ryan forgiveness, but I owed him a voice. That if I didn't speak up, it would ruin his life. Not one of them cared that mine was already in ruins. My ex, on the other hand, had completely disappeared. After her last social media post, she went silent. No updates, no drama, just vanished. I had a bad feeling about it, not because I missed her, I didn't, but because silence from someone like her usually meant she was recalibrating. I wasn't wrong. I got a letter from her lawyers a few days later. She wanted to file for a no-fault divorce. She also wanted me to sign a statement that she was never physically or emotionally abusive in our marriage. That part caught me off guard. I wasn't planning on contesting the divorce. I wanted out. But the sudden insistence that I preemptively state her innocence felt calculated, like she was getting ahead of something. I forwarded it to my lawyer and told him to handle it. I didn't want direct contact with her again, not after everything. The next twist came from a mutual friend. He told me that Ryan had started telling people that the affair wasn't really an affair, that it was a one-time mistake, and I blew it out of proportion, that my wife came on to him, and he regretted it the moment it happened, that I was always cold and distant in my marriage, and she felt neglected. That word neglected was almost funny, as if it wasn't infuriating. I was the one who cooked, cleaned, remembered anniversaries, and picked up her dry cleaning. I supported her when she got laid off, took care of her mother when she had surgery. I even helped Ryan out when he got laid off for 3 months. I gave him money. I was neglected. I stopped laughing around that point because it stopped being funny. It was dangerous. They were setting up a narrative. If I didn't say anything, they could twist it however they wanted. Make me look like some bitter, broken man trying to ruin 2 people's lives out of spite. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. My lawyer told me I didn't need to respond to anything, that silence was protection. But silence also left a lot of room for lies to fill in the gaps. Still, I stayed quiet. Because even though I wanted to scream, I didn't want to play their game. I didn't want to be dragged back into that mess. Let them lie, let them spin it. At the end of the day, people would believe whatever suited them. But then Ryan showed up at my job. He waited in the parking lot. I hadn't seen him in person since the day everything blew up. He looked awful, unshaven, tired, jittery. He said he didn't know where else to go, that no one would listen to him, that he didn't want to go to prison for something he didn't do, that he was sorry for everything, every word, every secret, every time he laughed behind my back. He begged me to speak up, said I was the only one who could change how this played out. And for a second, I felt pity, but just for a second. Then I remembered every word he said when he called me, the way he told me I was stupid for not noticing sooner, the way he mocked me for being boring, predictable, and pathetic. I told him I hoped the courtroom treated him better than he treated me. Then I got in my car and drove off. He hasn't shown up since. Update 4. A few days after Ryan showed up in my office parking lot, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was her. No hello, no apology, just a message that read, "You're being cruel. You don't understand what he did to me. I needed you to back me up." That was all she said, but I sat there staring at the screen, wondering how we got here, how we went from building a life together to her guilt-tripping me over something she never once took responsibility for. There was no remorse, no ownership, just deflection. That was the final confirmation I didn't know I still needed. She wasn't sorry for cheating. She was sorry she got caught. And when her backup plan went up in flames, she reached for the only tactic she had left, painting herself as the victim. I blocked that number. I didn't care what lies she told the court. I didn't care if Ryan burned with her or skated by somehow. I was done being the collateral damage in other people's messes. I wasn't going to spend another year being the emotional punching bag while everyone else tried to make their sins smaller by dumping them on my shoulders. I wasn't going to be the guy who lived in bitterness either. I wasn't going to sign any papers that either of them wanted. I don't know what happened, but I made my stance clear. Update 5. I sold the house, moved out of the city, got a new job somewhere quieter, somewhere where no one knew my name or what I'd been through. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want to explain myself. I just wanted silence. For the first time in years, I got it. I started going on long walks every evening, no phone, no music. Just me, the wind, and the sound of my own thoughts. For a while, that scared me, being alone with those thoughts. But eventually I got used to them, and then something I never expected happened. They got quieter. The anger stopped screaming. The pain stopped bleeding. One day I passed by a coffee shop. and didn't think about how she used to order a drink she'd always make me pay for. Another day, I passed a park and didn't think about our picnics. The memories didn't sting anymore, they were just memories. It took time and it was linear. Some days I'll wake up wondering how everything fell apart so catastrophically. Other days I thank God it did, because if it hadn't, I might still be there, smiling through a life with a baby that was never real to begin with. I don't know what's going to happen to Ryan in court. I don't know if she'll double down or backtrack. I don't care. Their case is still going on, last I heard. I'm not their savior. I'm not their shield. I'm not their scapegoat. I'm just me now, and that's enough. So if either of them ever reads this, just know I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. And that's something neither of you will ever take from me again. My mother knows where I am. I haven't told my father. My cousins and relatives on my mother's side are supporting me. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.